Hi guys, welcome to Sheria. Sheria is a platform that aims to educate the ordinary mwananchi about the law so that we can equip and empower you. So today, we have the privilege of recording at SEMA Studios. You can find them on Instagram at Millenium Work Depot, and they provide excellent services if you want to record any podcast, co-working space, any video you want to shoot. They provide excellent services.
So today, we're going to deal with a very interesting topic. I'm sure most of you would love to hear about this. We're going to deal with business registration. So, Judy, why is it important to register a business?
So you want to register a business so that the government can recognize your business as a legal entity. Similar to how when you've given birth or when you were born, you have a birth certificate. So consider registration is like getting a birth certificate for your business so that the government can recognize it. Yeah.
On top of that, I think it's a criminal offense to operate a business without a certificate. Right?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
mpate hiyo. There are several types of ways to register your business. So we have the sole proprietorship companies. It can be a private company or a public company. And we have partnerships. It can be a general partnership or a limited liability partnership. Would you like to shed light on sole proprietorship?
Okay, awesome. So sole proprietorship, I think it's the basic or the bare minimum. It's very easy. For example, you have an online business on Instagram and you want to, of course, like we mentioned, register it. So sole proprietorship is also known as business name registration. So it's a bare minimum basic where you just go. As an individual, you register under the business registration platform by eCitizen. All you need to do is have a name reservation. After having a name reservation, of course, now you provide for the particulars of the business. And then imagine your business is registered, of course, after filling the relevant forms on eCitizen. Imagine you can now start your business. Simply like that.
Basically, that's your kiosk. The kiosk you have out there, the salon you have out there, the hotel, the small hotel you have out there. That's what she's talking about. That's sole proprietorship. Now, we also have partnerships, yes? And we've said these general partnerships and limited liability partnerships. So what is a partnership? This is where two or more people come together and carry out a business for the purposes of making a profit. So that's a partnership. All of importance, profit. So what's the difference between a general partnership and a limited liability partnership? It's in the name, the limited liability. So maybe one can ask, what's limited liability or what's liability?
In simple terms, I can say liability is where you're found culpable for a loss or a wrongdoing out of a partnership. Then now, limited liability would mean that this extent of you being found culpable or liable or to pay is limited to a certain extent. So you're not fully, they cannot come and possess your Mercedes along Mombasa Road for you not paying the partnership debts. That's limited liability.
Exactly. If you've carried out any business, you know that there are profits and losses. There are good times, there are bad times. It's seasonal. So when we have liability, you share, especially in a partnership, you share the profits and the liabilities. So when you have limited liability, say you have creditors, you had borrowed some money. So the people you owe the money are referred to as the creditors. So you have creditors, you now owe them that money. But the partnership is not, the limited liability partnership is not able to pay that money, meaning it does not have enough assets to pay that money. Then what happens? It can come to your pocket as a partner. So in a limited liability partnership, it cannot come to your pocket. The creditors cannot visit you personally. However, the liability cannot visit you personally. But in a general partnership, they can. So the question is, then, is this limited liability partnership? Kwani ni mtu? How is it that it carries its own burden and its own, it's responsible on its own?
Exactly. So I think just to explain the difference between the general partnership and the limited liability partnership is that in a limited liability partnership, there's one partner who's known as a general partner who will be answerable to a certain extent, and the answerability is unlimited. So limited liability only applies to a class of partners. If you're forming a partnership, we are 6 partners. Out of the 6 partners, we must have at least one partner who has unlimited liability. In the event of deaths, the creditors will come after them, even to his or her pockets. But for the other partners, they are just sort of investors. They're even limited in terms of how much they can control the business, the day-to-day running of the business. So that is why they're protected, even to the extent of having limited liability.
Exactly. I believe that one partner is called the general manager, basically. So he manages the day-to-day business of the partnership. So if a partnership is a limited liability partnership, it means in the eyes of the law, this is a person. In business, we have a natural person, that is you and me and her. And then we have a body corporate. Now, this is a body corporate in terms of it has rights. It can enter into agreements in its own name, and it can be sued, and it can sue in its own name. And that's why it can be able to carry the liabilities on its own. So that's one difference between the general partnership and the limited liability partnership. Now, we have companies.
Yeah.
What can you tell us?
About companies. So now, you want to do a business, but you don't want to be quote unquote involved in terms of a name. You want to be a separate entity from the business. That is where a company comes in. So a company is a separate legal entity. I think like you have explained, it's a person in itself recognized by the law. And of course, they're conducting business for purposes of making a profit. So you have people who manage it, and they're called directors. The directors are coming in to manage how this company is going to make profits for the benefit of investors. And these investors is now you and me, and we call them shareholders. So in general, we're trying to say company is separate from a partnership or a sole proprietorship, in that, you see, in a sole proprietorship, I can come to you directly. Even if I'm suing you directly. In a partnership, general partnership, we are suing you directly. In a company, I am a separate person from the company. I'm a separate legal entity. Yeah, so that's a general outline of what would be a company.
Yeah. And we said companies are 2.
Yeah.
The private company and the public company. So a private company, number 1, is restricted to only 50 members, and it has directors, of course. And then we also have a public company. Now, that is open to the public. We have a good number of public companies we know, and you are shareholders in them. And at the end of maybe once a year or twice a year, I don't know, you get dividends as a shareholder, which is your right. Now, what is the difference between the two? Other than the fact that one is public and one is private.
So the major difference I think you need to note that is for private partnership, like you've mentioned, it is restricted to a certain amount of shareholders. Not just anybody can trade and buy shares in it. For public listed company, it even has separate laws governing it, and it has to be listed as a public listed company for it to fall under the category of a public listed company. And even in terms of management, for example, it has the Mwongozo Code and other acts that are unique to this public company.
Exactly. So one may ask, how do I decide how to register my business? Should I register it as a company, as a partnership, or as a sole proprietorship? So maybe you can consider the advantages and disadvantages of each. Maybe you can start us off with the advantages and disadvantages of a sole proprietorship.
Okay, so sole proprietorship, like we mentioned, very quick to register, minimal paperwork. You just go fill in the 2 documents that are required under the business registration platform via eCitizen platform. You start by reserving your name and then particulars of the business. And then after that, imagine you pay around less than 1,500 and you'll have all your documents ready for you to conduct a business. So in less than a month, you'll have all the requisite documents required of you to register sole proprietorship. So it's very quick. Another advantage is you're the owner and you're the sole proprietor as the owner of a business. So meaning profits ni wewe.
Ni wewe.
Zinaingia kwa mfuko tu yako directly.
Peke yako.
You also don't pay double tax because you're using your PIN, KRA PIN. As long as you have paid your KRA PIN on the profits that you've made on the business, you're not liable, or you're not exposing yourself to double taxation. So those are the disadvantages of sole proprietorship. Oh, and one more. In terms of sole proprietorship, it is faster to make a decision. We look at it when we're comparing it with a company. So, for example, a company, before you make a decision, you must have to go through a meeting, there's a voting, etc. If it is a sole proprietorship, your online business on Instagram, all you need to do is make the decision because you're the owner of a business.
I know, right?
Yeah.
In fact, you can close it when you want, open it when you want. Today you can be selling mangoes, tomorrow you're selling tomatoes. It's your choice, and it's very fast. You don't have to consult anybody about it. Now, definitely, there are disadvantages. Every coin has two sides. So what are some of the disadvantages?
The disadvantages, I think we mentioned it at the beginning, you have unlimited liability. So if your business is making losses, your creditors can come to your office, can come to your house and possess even that luxury TV that you bought. They will come for it.
Yeah.
And it is part of now the disadvantage of having a sole proprietorship. Yeah.
I believe so. So auctioneers, that's when they come knocking to your place, wanachukua kila kitu, because there's no difference between you and your business. You are one and the same. So its actions are your actions and vice versa. So another disadvantage is you're making these decisions alone. Remember, you're not consulting anyone. So you're likely to make mistakes, and you're risking however, you might be an expert, but remember, 2 heads are better than one. So now we have the partnerships, right? Advantages and disadvantages of a partnership. Let me start. Okay, so advantages of a partnership. Hey, you're many. At least you're two. So you're making decisions while you're two. And then, as you said, businesses, there are seasons that govern them, right? There are good times, there are bad times. Now, in a partnership, you get to share the profits and the losses, right? So anytime your business undergoes a loss, you get to share that loss with your partner. Now, number 3, you avoid filing tax. You avoid double tax, basically, because when you file your personal taxes, that includes what you made in your business, the profits, and you can deduct the losses. Any other advantages of a partnership?
I think what we can mention, just before we go to the advantages of a partnership, is the importance of having a partnership deed. So we can say a partnership is like a contract to govern the rights, the duties, and the responsibilities of parties. So if you're bringing 2 or more people, we want clear terms on how the business is going to be run. And of course, it's now through the partnership deed. So we can have an advantage over that. In terms of, we know partner A is bringing 20 million, partner B is bringing 30 million. This is how we're going to share the profits. This is how we're going to run the business, through a partnership deed. Yeah. So now to the disadvantages of partnership. Comparing it to sole proprietorship, you'll have to split the profits. And of course, that is a double-edged sword. If you're splitting the profits, you're also splitting the loss.
Yeah.
Yes, it's an advantage when it comes to splitting the losses because you're not bearing the loss alone. But when it comes to the profit, haingi kwa mfuko yako peke yako directly. You have to share among directors. So if you're 10 directors, the profit will be shared among the 10 directors.
Yeah.
If you're 2, it is shared among the 2.
Yeah, exactly. And also when it comes to decision making, now this one is much slower because in a sole proprietorship, you can decide today we are closing this business. But when it comes to a partnership, you all have to make that decision and arrive at it together. So when it comes to decision making, it's a bit slower. Also, when it comes to registration, it needs more documents than a sole proprietorship, especially when it comes to the limited liability partnerships. So any other disadvantage?
Another disadvantage, I'm not sure we had mentioned, but a disadvantage of we have unlimited liability when it comes to general partnership.
Yeah.
So meaning they will come to the creditors, will come knocking at your door. The auctioneers will come knocking at your door in the event of losses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned something important, a partnership deed. This is basically the agreement between the partners when they come together. It consists of course, the details of the partners, the details of the business. That means the nature of the business, what the business is about. It also contains how the profits and the losses will be shared, contains the contribution of the partners, what amount of money they'll be able to bring in at the start of a partnership. It talks about how you resolve disputes that arise among among the partners. It also talks about how much you can borrow from the partnership and the interest charged. Talks about the goodwill and talks about the remuneration of the partnership. That means ile pesa unalipwa as a partner. Yeah.
So I think we've touched at least briefly on sole proprietorship and partnership. The common advantage or disadvantage between these two is when it comes to dissolving, or when you want to wind up, umechoka na hii biashara and you want to finish with it and you don't want to be found liable at the end of the day. Dissolving it is very quick compared to a company. Unaweza amua kesho, I want to dissolve a company, follow the requisite process, which is very quick once again. You can even change the name very quickly, which is an advantage to both sole proprietorship as well as partnerships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
However, you have to understand this. Changing the name of your business, particularly the limited liability partnerships, does not absolve you from the problems you had before. In the event you had been sued and your name was Korogocho Markets Limited, Partners Limited or something, Limited Liability Partnership, and you had been sued, and you change it to now Machakos so Limited, the suit will still continue. The name will just be changed there, but the suit will still live on, and you'll still have to go through that process. So changing the name is not you cannot sanitize that situation, but yes, you can change its name.
Okay, just to add on to that, disadvantage is if I make a decision as a partner, I'm deemed to be an agent of all the other partners. So meaning I can legally bind all the other partners. And even if I'm being sued and I have left the partnership, there's a time span within which, like I think you've mentioned, you'll be held culpable for the acts that you committed within the partnership. Yes. So my actions as a partner will bind the other partners in a partnership. So that's another disadvantage.
Exactly. You have to realize as a partner, you are an agent of that partnership. As long as you're acting, of course, within your duties. So carry out your duties well, because they do affect. Remember, you're sharing the losses, so they will affect your other partners. And maybe that's something you need to consider when you're trying to think whether you should do a sole proprietorship or a partnership, because now someone else's actions will affect your money. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. So I think now we can move to the advantages and disadvantages of a company.
Exactly.
Yes, but I think for purposes of today, because most of you are looking to form a private company, we'll focus on the advantages and disadvantages of a private company. So let's start with the advantage.
Yeah.
It is a separate legal entity. So meaning the creditor cannot come knocking at your door as a director or as a shareholder. Yeah. They'll have to sue the company directly. So I think there's a famous case. Any legal student will know this case. Solomon versus Solomon. They are always saying the court cannot open the veil. Hawezi enda kuchungulia ndani to see who are the owners of the company if the company has committed a wrong. Of course, not criminal wrong. So it being a separate legal entity, to a certain extent, it protects you from liability and from loss.
Another advantage is you as a person can hire people to come in as a board of directors, and they bring in their expertise to help in the day-to-day management of the business. That ensures at least higher chances of success. Also, unlike the limited liability partnerships, this one at least is open to 50 members. That means more capital for you in terms of them purchasing the shares of the company.
Yeah. And another, I don't know if could be an advantage or disadvantage, depending on how you look at it. For you to form a company in Kenya, you don't have to be more than one person. You can be an individual. Wewe mwenyewe, you have the resources, and you don't want to tag along other people. You have the right to form a company as a director. And the advantage of it being, it will be a separate legal entity. So meaning no liability will attract.
Exactly. So we also have the disadvantages of forming a private limited company. So some of those things are, one, the process of forming it compared to the other businesses you've talked about is quite tasking. There are more regulations to follow. You need more documents, more processes, and it will take a longer time. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe just to add on to the documents that you may be required, you need to have an article of association, you need to have a memorandum of association, you need to declare the share capital, you need to provide for the details of the director, and you also need to have a physical place for you to declare when you're registering the company. So you'll see, ideally now the process is long as compared to a normal business.
Another disadvantage is the process of winding up a private company is quite complicated. You'll have to do much more than when you're winding up a limited liability partnership. Also, you'll have to endure double tax. That means you'll have to pay as the individual, and also you'll have to endure the corporate tax. Another disadvantage is, of course, the decision-making process. Many people, the board of directors, and you have to get a majority vote for that decision to be passed.
So I think now we have come to the end of the episode. I hope you have enjoyed. I hope you have learned a few things about business registration, the types of businesses that you can form, the advantages and disadvantages, straight from being an individual in sole proprietorship, when you're to partnership, and registration of a company. So that's all for today. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to comment, like, share, and subscribe. That's all for today. Bye.
Bye-bye.